Do you often experience anger when things are not going well? Would you like to experience anger less often? Anger strains your life in so many ways, your health, your relationships, even your credibility. If you'd like to transcend anger and uproot it from your life so that it occurs less and less, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Richard Haight. I'm a master instructor of martial and meditation arts. I spent 15 years in Japan studying the ancient arts, and I'd like to share some of the wisdom that I've learned with you. I'd also like to offer you a free 7-day trial to the Warrior's Meditation, a course that I teach every day. We meditate together to start your day right. Click the link below for your free 7-day trial. Now on to the content of this video. First, it's important to understand that anger is not wrong. Anger simply is what it is. It's an emotional response to overwhelm. It's an emotional response oftentimes as a result of not achieving a certain expectation. We have anger. There's several reasons for anger. Some of them is just simply due to health issues. But anytime we've been overwhelmed, whether it's due to our physical condition or due to an expectation not being met, the body is going to tend to want to respond in one of two ways, either anger or withdrawal. And so it's important to understand that it's not just anger that we want to be looking at here, but also our tendency to withdraw into ourselves. And some people will have a tendency, based on their personality type, to respond in anger or frustration. They become edgy when under stress. Now, this could be stress from being in poor physical health or being too tired, again, or it can be stress as a result of having a goal that we're aiming toward that we're not achieving, or someone simply interrupting us when we're speaking, or someone getting in our pathway. Whenever we're under pressure, whatever is around us becomes an enemy, in a sense, an object. It's no longer an ally. It's no longer seen in its rightful place, but it becomes essentially an enemy or an object or an offense. So what we want to do is, of course, notice our own bodily pattern. What is it our nervous system tends to do? And also understand that some of what our nervous system tends to do will depend on the context of our situation. For example, a person who may normally be in a withdrawal state, if they're in a relationship with someone who tends to be more withdrawing than even they are, the tendency in that particular condition, that particular situation, might be that the person who normally withdraws, but just not as much as their partner, actually expresses anger. And so oftentimes our response will be relative to our sort of social position, relative to others, and also their tendency to be either more angry or go into withdrawal. Now, if we have a tendency towards anger, any sufficient tendency towards anger, that's usually what's going to occur, especially if it seems to get us results. And this is the key point. You'll start to notice as you pay attention to anger that sometimes you'll get immediate results, but you're kind of undermining yourself in the long term. One, of course, you're causing yourself stress, so you're undermining your health. But two, you're undermining a certain trust in the relationship. A trust also in your credibility. You're simply not mature enough to be able to handle hardship without going into anger. That's essentially what's happening. And if we've had any success, if we've used anger as a strategy at some point and it was successful, because it made us feel powerful, it's all the more likely that we will use anger more often when things are not going well. And so it's a very dangerous strategy and very seductive once it starts. If we had a success, we're likely to use it more often. And so it is probably equally as unhealthy for the body as the withdrawal response. However, it's not not that it's worse. The withdrawal is sort of you pulling it into your shell. It's a very weak position to go into. And it essentially is saying, I'm not strong enough to handle this situation. I can't put up with this, and so I'm going to pull away. Whereas the anger is, I'm going to make you do what I want. Essentially is what anger is. It's a lashing out. So one is almost a predatory instinct, and the other is sort of a prey instinct. Now, there is no, I don't want to say there's anything spiritually wrong, or that anger or withdrawal don't have their appropriate times before. Certainly, I think whenever you're overburdened, the natural bodily response is to go into one or the other of those. And it takes actually a certain awareness and a certain awareness, a certain in-depth awareness of the nervous system, and training to be aware of when overwhelm is occurring, to undermine or uproot anger. The first step is, of course, just admitting that we have a tendency to respond with anger or withdrawal. Once we notice that, we have to make it an intention to practice slowing down or calming. And this is for the withdrawal as well. The withdrawal is happening because we're not in a calm, clear state. And so we're going to be aware that we're not in a calm, clear state. We have an intention to go into a calm, clear state, and essentially practice that. Practice it throughout your day with things that would normally trigger you into withdrawal or anger. You can practice calming in those situations, and you turn your daily life into a practice of calm clarity. Ultimately, if you've been using anger for a long time, you probably have not developed, as well as withdrawal, you've probably not developed social strategies that allow you to do anything other than express anger. So you're going to want to learn to communicate under such situations, not using anger, how to negotiate. And of course, there are some people that they're just not pleasant to be around pretty much all the time. And if you're getting angry just around that one person, but not around everybody else, if you just this one person constantly setting off, you might need to take a break from that person. They just might be not very kind, not very sociable, not very amicable people. They might just be asses in a sense. So we want to be aware that that's a possibility as well. It could be that, we're around somebody who's just that unpleasant, and we're getting worn down. And once we reach the end of our wick, we flash into anger or go into withdrawal. But if that's what's happening, you're probably not going to just suddenly be able to stop responding. So you may need to give yourself a break from that person and kind of train yourself into being less responsive, more into calm clarity. Now, there's a number of reasons why we would want to do this. Again, our lives tend not to go well when we use these two things as strategies. And again, we want to find that neutral, clear place within. And when we start to do that more and more, others around us will trust us. Especially, they'll start to trust us to make good decisions, to have clarity. They will trust our honesty. Your word will have more power around people that have been exposed to you for a period of time, because they know that what you say means something. Usually when we're angry, we respond with words that we may really mean them in that moment, but in the long run, when we have a clear mind, we wouldn't say those things, and we don't really feel them very deeply. Yeah, a little bit we may feel them, but they're not really the totality of our true opinion. But when we're angry, oftentimes is again a predatory state of mind. There's an attack going on. We're saying something with the attempt to inflict a pain on the individual. And so at that time, essentially, we're distorting and lying. And that undermines our credibility. And so even when we're not, let's say, pleased with the other person, or maybe when we disagree, we will learn to be very honest and to select our words very carefully. This is essential. The same with withdrawal. The tendency to clam up and not speak at all, especially if it's a submissive type not speaking. then that's going to create a tendency for your partner to dominate more, and that's not going to actually resolve the issue. Now, of course, being silent isn't a problem. That might be the best. Oftentimes it is a good answer, but not from that withdrawal energy, because that will be perceived as weakness, but instead from a calm, clear, stable energy. You've simply decided not to speak to that person, and maybe even do something better at that moment. And you're taking it very seriously, but it's not coming from weakness. So the first step is, again, admitting that you may be having an issue with anger or withdrawal, to starting to notice what triggers the anger and withdrawal, and also taking into account that we probably won't go into anger and withdrawal if we're healthier. So if we're getting exercise, if we're eating well, if we're taking and sleeping consistent, proper hours, we're probably going to be less agitated, less tendency to go into withdrawal, because we're simply in good health, and our bodies are able to tolerate more stress without going into that nervous system response. So taking care of your health is essential. Being honest in your relationships is essential. Setting up good borders, lines, that sort of, not letting people just walk all over you all the time, because that will build up and cause withdrawal and anger, but meaningfully making lines in the ground and standing for them is very, very important. And then also practicing calming, practicing taking an extra 10 seconds to respond, or an extra 3 seconds to respond. Take a time to take a good breath. Take a time to take several good breaths if you have to. If the person wants to speak with you, they can wait. Take a few calm, slow breaths is the key. Calm, slow breaths. And then calming the nervous system, calming and relaxing the body. And from there, you may be able to navigate the situation a little bit better. Now, if you do go into anger, there's no need to have any judgment over yourself about it. You're just seeing the response. You're seeing your bodily response to how you were in that moment. It's just a reflection of your nervous system in the moment. And of course, maybe your preparation, how well is your health? How clear have you been in the relationship? And have you set up a good structure of boundaries? And, all of that's very, very important. But the anger that it shows up, as it shows up in the moment, is just a reflection of something deeper that's going on. The preparation, the state of the nervous system, and our specific triggers. And so when we're getting angry, it's telling us something. Also start to notice the long-term effects of anger. If you start to notice that they affect your health negatively, or that your relationships are worse off because of them, or you're losing credibility, that very awareness itself will start to soften the tendency, because you simply want to be angry less. You won't see it, you're less inclined to see it as a successful strategy once you really take a look at it. If we've not taken a look at anger, we might see the short-term benefit of someone who's more submissive than us caving into it. But in the long run, that's not really going to be seen as beneficial if we look at the big picture. Furthermore, some of us may be feeding on anger. But we actually want to pick a fight with our partners, and we want them to yell back at us, because there's this sort of inner demon that's feasting on the energy. There is that too, and that can create an addiction to an angry response if that's what's going on. If you're tired of that emotional need for that emotional rush, there's a couple things going on. One, you're not being very honest in the relationship. And two, you're probably not expending your energy in healthier ways. If you are expending your energy in healthier ways, really exhausting the body, you're probably not going to use that strategy anymore. And if it's a stress exhaustion, then you'll go into anger. So those are some of the things we need to be mindful of, but really seeing the nature of anger, and also all this applies to withdrawal as well. Really seeing the nature of it and how it's been serving as a short-term strategy that's sort of somehow gotten us through, absent a better strategy. If we look at it from the big picture, we'll start to see how actually they're kind of weak energies. the withdrawal is going to be obviously seen as a weak energy. The anger is going to be seen as an immature or out of control energy, which in my mind is also a weakness. It certainly won't have a stability or clarity to it. When we see that, we'll be less inclined towards it. Winding down the video, I'd like to remind you there's a free 7-day trial. Click the link below to begin the Warrior's Meditation. Hope to see you there.